In 2006, a quiet storm came out of Chicago. At a time when rap was split between the commercial flash of the South and the gritty tales of New York, a young MC stepped into the spotlight with something different. His verses carried the discipline of a martial artist, the curiosity of a reader, and the precision of a poet. His name was Usalu Mohammed Jaco. The world would know him as Lupe Fiasco. Food and Liquor wasn't just another debut rap album. It was a mission statement, a meditation on America, on morality, and on the choices that feed us and the temptations that poison us. With its mix of cinematic production, then storytelling, and vision, it became one of the most daring introductions in hip-hop history. This is a story of how Food and Liquor was made, the city that shaped it, the artists who built it, the battles behind it, and the lasting impact of Lupe Fiasco's first masterpiece. Before Lupe Fiasco became the voice of an era, he was Usalu Mohammed Jaco, a quiet, curious kid growing up on the west side of Chicago. Born on February 16th of 1982, Lupe was raised in a household that prized both discipline and knowledge. His father, a former member of the Black Panthers, ran martial arts schools and exposed Lupe to books, politics, and jazz records. His mother, a chef, kept the family grounded with structure and faith. Growing up Muslim, Lupe balanced the spirituality of Islam with the harsh realities of the neighborhood around him. Chicago in the late 80s and early 90s wasn't an easy place for a young dreamer. The streets carried a weight of poverty, violence, and drugs. But instead of succumbing to those pressures, Lupe found sanctuary in words. He read vicariously, practiced martial arts, and started writing poetry before he even touched the mic. Like many other kids of his generation, hip-hop was the soundtrack of his childhood. He grew up listening to groups like NWA, A Tribe Called Quest, and Nas, dissecting their lyrics line by line. But unlike most of his peers, Lupe was already thinking about what hip-hop meant, about the message it carried, and the contradictions it held. By the time he reached high school, he wasn't just another kid rhyming in the lunchroom. He was sharpening a voice that would challenge everything he saw, from the glorification of violence to the stereotypes that follow black youth in America. That curiosity, discipline, and refusal to conform would follow him into the studios years later, shaping the foundation of Food and Liquor. As Lupe entered his late teens, Chicago hip-hop was still looking for its national identity. The city had talent, but it hadn't yet broken through on the scale of New York or LA or Atlanta. In that gap, Lupe carved his own lane. He first made noise as a part of the group The Pack, signed briefly to Epic Records in the late 90s. The group didn't last long, but the experience gave Lupe his first taste of the industry and showed him how quick labels were to chew them up and spit them out as young artists. After the Pack folded, Lupe shifted into solo work. He built a reputation through mixtapes like Fahrenheit 115, a trilogy of underground projects where he experiments with flows, storytelling, and his knack for flipping unusual topics into rap verses. These tapes began circulating in Chicago and beyond, marking him as an artist to watch. But the turning point came from a cold sign that nobody could ignore. In 2005, Kanye West, already fresh off the college dropout and late registration, tapped Lupe for a guest verse on Touch the Sky. It was a verse that felt like a revival, clever, confident, and different from everything else on the radio. Suddenly, Lupe wasn't just an underground poet with mixtapes. He was a new face everyone wanted to know. Behind the scenes, Jay-Z had also taken notice, serving as an executive producer on Lupe's upcoming debut. Ho's presence adding even more weight to what was coming. The stage was set. With Kanye's spotlight and Jay-Z's guidance, Lupe was no longer Chicago's secret. By the mid-2000s, Lupe Fiasco was no longer just Chicago's underground secret. With Kanye West co-sign and Jay-Z's executive backing, anticipation for his debut album was sky high. But instead of chasing radio trends, Lupe decided to create something far deeper, a manifesto dressed as a rap album. The title Food and Liquor came straight from his environment. Growing up, Lupe saw corner stores across Chicago stamped with the same glowing sign, Food and Liquor. On the surface, there were places where you bought groceries, candy, and snacks, but there were also where you found liquor, cigarettes, and quick escapes. To Lupe, the phrase became a metaphor for life itself, the balance between what nourishes us and what destroys us. In interviews, Lupe explained he wanted the album to explore the duality, the struggle between positive and negative, knowledge and ignorance, faith and temptation. The record wasn't just a collection of songs, it was a reflection of Chicago's contradictions and, by extension, America's. Recording sessions stretched from 2003 to 2006, with much of the production handled by Soundtrack, Prolific, and Needles. They built cinematic soundscapes, strings, horns, and layered samples that gave Lupe's dense verses space to breathe. Guest producers added their own textures. Kanye West with the haunting minimalism of The Cool, the Neptunes with the bounce of I Gotcha, and Mike Shinoda of Linkin Park with the alternative edge of the instrumental. Even the album artwork carried weight. Designed with Lupe floating against a stark background surrounded by scattered objects from his life, a skateboard, a samurai sword, books, and sneakers. The cover symbolized his world, suspended between gravity and imagination. It was part autobiography, part surreal portrait. But Food and Liquor wasn't just designed to impress critics. Lupe wanted to feed listeners intellectually and spiritually, to stand as proof that hip-hop could be commercially viable without losing its conscience. This was an album built on intention, every title, every beat, every metaphor carefully chosen. By 2006, the blueprint was complete. Lupe had crafted a debut album that would introduce him not just as a rapper, but as a thinker. A young man stepping onto the world stage with an album that aimed to shift the entire conversation. Food and Liquor wasn't just an album, it was a carefully sequenced journey. Every track carried purpose, painting a picture of Lupe's worldview while balancing accessibility with artistry. Let's break down the album song by song. Number 1, the intro. The album opens up now with Lupe, but with his sister reciting a spoken word piece. She describes the world of violence, beauty, temptation, and resilience, perfectly setting the stage for the themes to come. It's an invocation grounding the listener in Chicago's reality before Lupe even speaks a bar. Track number 2, Real. Real is Lupe's mission statement. Over soundtrack soulful production, he raps about the contradictions of modern life, wealth versus poverty, fantasy versus authenticity. It's a track that demands reflection, urging listeners to reconsider what's truly real in the consumer-driven world. Track number 3, Just Might Be Okay. On this record, Lupe delivers one of his most socially conscious records. He addresses systemic struggles, poverty, injustice, and urban decay. The hook, sung like gospel-like urgency, provides a glimmer of hope that through perseverance, survival is possible. Track number 4, and my favorite track on the album, which is of course, Kick Push. It became Lupe's breakthrough anthem. At first listen, it's a skateboarder theme song, but beneath the surface, it's a metaphor for young outsiders carving their own path, pushing against society's expectations. With its jazzy horns and breezy feel, the track gave Lupe a mainstream hit without sacrificing depth. Track number 5, I Gotcha. Produced by the Neptunes, I Gotcha brought a bounce and swagger to the album. Pharrell's minimalist beat gave Lupe room to flex lyrically, braggadocious, witty, and sharp. It was his most radio-friendly cut, but still filled with clever wordplay that separated him from typical rap singles of the time. Track number 6, The Instrumentals, marked a unique crossover moment. Produced by Mike Shinoda of Linkin Park, it blended alternative rock textures with Lupe's sharp storytelling. The song critiques how media consumption shapes behavior, with Jonah Matranga's haunting hook reminding us how easily people became what they watch. Track number 7, He Say, She Say. One of Lupe's most heartfelt songs, He Say, She Say tells the story of a child longing of his absent father. Verses are emotional and raw, rent in the voices of both the child and the mother. It was a bold departure from the typical subject matter, vulnerable, painful, and universally relatable. Track number 8, Sunshine. This track is more heart-lighted, a simple, optimistic love song with a warm, soulful beat. Lupe raps about meeting a girl at a party and feeling instant chemistry. It's proof that even within a heavy album, Lupe could create something of joy and levity. Track number 9, Daydreaming, featuring Jill Scott. This track earned Lupe his first Grammy Award, featuring Jill Scott's ethereal hook and a sample from I Monster's Daydreaming in Blue. The track critiques materialism and escapism in hip-hop. Lupe raps from the perspective of a robot, using surrealism to dissect the industry's obsession with excess. It's one of his most creative achievements ever. Track number 10, The Cool, produced by Kanye West, introduced one of Lupe's most iconic characters. In this chilling narrative, Lupe tells the story of a man who rises from the grave to chase street glory. This track and concept will later inspire an entire album in 2007 called The Cool, but here it stands as a dark meditation on morality, legacy, and misguided ambition. Track number 11, Hurt Me So. On this track, Lupe bears his soul. He confesses his love-hate relationship with hip-hop, drawn to his creativity but hurt by his violence, misogyny, and contradictions. It's a lyrical therapy session with Lupe rapping through the pain of reconciling art with reality. For many fans, this was the emotional centerpiece of the album. Track number 12, The Pressure or Pressure, featuring Jay-Z. This track brought everything full circle. Jay-Z, who had championed Lupe from the start, appears on this track, not as an executive, but as a collaborator. Over soundtrack's beat, both Jay-Z and Lupe delivered sharp verses. For Lupe, rapping alongside Jay-Z was a coronation, proof that he had arrived on hip-hop's biggest stage. Track number 13, American Terrorist, featuring Matthew Santos. This track was one of the album's most controversial songs. With Matthew Santos on the hook, Lupe boldly criticized America's history with slavery, racism, and imperialism. At the time when post-9/11 patriotism dominated the mainstream, Lupe flipped the narrative, asking, who gets to define what terrorism really means? Track number 14, The Emperor soundtrack. This track included on some editions of the album showcased Lupe at his most conceptual, a lyrical exploration of power, politics, and corruption. Though not as celebrated as other tracks, it demonstrated the breadth of Lupe's ambition, pushing hip-hop into abstract territory. Track number 15, Kick and Push 2. This track returns to the skater metaphor, but darker and more reflective. Instead of youthful freedom, the sequel touches on responsibility, maturity, and the challenges that come after rebellion. It's a reminder that growth comes with consequences. And track number 16, the outro. The album closes with an outro that brings everything full circle, reaffirming the balance of food and liquor, nourishment and poison, hope and despair. By the end of the journey, Food and Liquor had delivered not just an album, but a philosophy. With Food and Liquor, Lupe Fiasco created a debut unlike anything else in 2006, dense, conceptual, and fearless. Every track served as a chapter in his manifesto, cementing his arrival as one of hip-hop's brightest minds. After years of grinding, Food and Liquor finally hit shelves on September 19th of 2006, but its road to release wasn't smooth. Earlier that year, the album leaked online in almost its entirety. The leak threatened to derail Lupe's debut, forcing him to rework, re-record, and restructure songs to make the official release stand apart. Despite the setback, anticipation was sky high through the roof. With Kanye's co-sign, Jay-Z's executive production, and critical buzz from Kick and Push, Lupe was positioned as hip-hop's next great hope. When it dropped, Food and Liquor debuted at number 8 on Billboard 200, selling over 80,000 copies in its first week. For a new artist with such an unconventional approach, it was a major victory, but the real success came in the reception. Critics praised Lupe as a breath of fresh air. Rolling Stone hailed the album as lyrical intelligence at its finest, while The Source highlighted his ability to balance storytelling with mainstream appeal. Pitchfork scored it as an impressive 8.4, calling it one of the sharpest debuts in years. For many, Food and Liquor felt like the reintroduction of consciousness in mainstream rap, but not preachy, not corny, but genuinely innovative. Lupe had made thinking man's hip-hop accessible without watering it down. Lupe's debut went on to receive 4 Grammy nominations, including Best Rap Album, Best Rap Song, and Best Rap Solo Performance. He would win his first Grammy a year later for Daydreaming with Jill Scott. Suddenly, the kid from the west side of Chicago wasn't just a promising newcomer. He was a Grammy-winning artist with the respect of his peers and the industry itself. But beyond awards and reviews, the album's real impact was cultural. In an era dominated by snap music, ringtone rap, and club anthems, Lupe brought something radically different. He spoke for the outsiders, the skateboarders, the anime fans, the kids who love hip-hop but didn't fit into these cliches. Kick and Push became an anthem for misfits. He Say, She Say gave a voice to fatherless children. And American Terrorists sparked conversations about America's role in the world at a time when few rappers dared to question it. Lupe Fiasco had proven that hip-hop could still be expansive, daring, and thought-provoking even in the mainstream era. Food and Liquor wasn't just a debut album, it was a statement of intent. Lupe Fiasco had arrived not as a follower, but as a visionary, challenging what rap could be and setting the stage for even more ambitious follow-ups. Looking back, Food and Liquor wasn't just a successful debut, it was the beginning of a philosophy. The album positioned Lupe Fiasco as one of the most important voices of his generation, a rapper unafraid to tackle subjects others avoided, while still creating music that resonated with the mainstream. The characters and concept introduced here, from the metaphor of Kick Push to the haunting resurrection tale in The Cool, planting seeds for his future projects. And in fact, the Cool character will become the centerpiece of Lupe's sophomore album, a record even more ambitious and darker in tone. Food and Liquor expanded the boundaries of what mainstream hip-hop could be. In the mid-2000s, when the charts leaned heavily on club records and street anthems, Lupe carved out space for introspection, intellect, and imagination. He opened doors for artists who didn't fit the mold, paving the way for rappers like J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, Logic, and others who built careers blending lyrical depth with mainstream appeal. Many of these artists have cited Lupe as a direct influence, crediting Food and Liquor as proof that thoughtful rap could thrive on global stages. For fans, especially those who felt like outsiders, Lupe's debut was more than music, it was representation. He showed that you didn't have to fit the stereotypical mold of a rapper to belong. You could be into skateboarding, anime, literature, or philosophy and still be a part of hip-hop culture. This message resonated deeply with an entire generation of fans who finally saw themselves reflected in music. Even years later, Lupe himself has a complicated relationship with Food and Liquor. While he acknowledged its importance, he also spoken about the pressures, compromises, and struggles of being a young artist thrust into the spotlight, yet the album's endurance speaks for itself. Nearly 2 decades later after its release, songs like Kick Push, Daydreaming, and Hurt Me So still sound timeless, and the themes remain as relevant as ever. In the end, Food and Liquor wasn't just a debut, it was a declaration. It proved that hip-hop could be intellectual without being elitist, emotional without being soft, and creative without being corny. For Lupe Fiasco, it laid the foundation of a career defined by vision, innovation, and fearlessness. For hip-hop, it was a reminder that art still had the power to challenge, uplift, and inspire.